From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this busy Sunday. I'm Lindsay Davis. As we come on the air in the West, there is breaking news. President Biden has just announced that he has pardoned his son Hunter on gun and tax charges. Hunter Biden was potentially facing decades in prison. President Biden had long maintained that he would not pardon his only surviving son, telling David Muir just this summer emphatically that he would not. President Biden said in his statement, "Here's the truth. I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision." ABC's chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce joins us now on the phone. Mary, President Biden is now doing what he said he would not. Why now?
And Lindsay, for months, the president made clear this was something he simply was not going to do. You are right. He was emphatic in saying he had ruled out giving his son, Hunter Biden, a pardon. But now things are obviously different. And the president saying tonight that he is signing this full and unconditional pardon after wrestling with this decision. But as you said, he blasted the raw politics that he says has infected the legal system. And in this really remarkable statement, the president is also doing something that he hasn't done, which is just commenting even on his son's case. He has spent months really trying to stay clear of any of this because he didn't want to give any kind of impression that he was tampering with or involved at all in any way with the justice system and with, what he felt was playing out appropriately. But the president clearly has said here that no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's case can reach any other conclusion than that Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. The president saying that is wrong. And as you noted, this is a statement and a decision that he is coming to as a devoted father, but also, of course, as a president, Lindsay.
Mary Bruce, our thanks to you. Here in the East, millions of Americans are under winter weather alerts for the first time this season, and there is more to come. Later this week, snow could hit the I-95 corridor. But tonight, there is a lake effect snow warning from Cleveland to Buffalo. These images are from Watertown, New York. To the west, the Buffalo Bills called for volunteers to help clear the snow ahead of tonight's game. And Governor Hochul is promising more resources to try to keep the roads moving. Just outside of Buffalo, a rare winter water spout was spotted offshore in Lake Erie. Pennsylvania's governor called up the National Guard to assist in what's being called a historic storm that's dumping feet of snow in the area. And this all comes during one of the busiest travel days of the year with millions on the move after the Thanksgiving holiday. Somara Theodore will time out the forecast. But first, ABC's Trevor Ault has the latest from Watertown, New York.
Tonight, dangerous winter weather causing chaos for millions. 5 states under weather alerts with lake effect snow blanketing parts of the Northeast. Travel advisories issued through northern and western New York because of terrible road conditions. Cars seen banked along I-81 near Watertown. More than 3 feet of snow already on the ground there, and there may be 5 feet by tomorrow. Snowplows and emergency services out in force. Buffalo Bills fans also chipping in ahead of tonight's game.
Just keeps coming.
Digging out the stadium from snow.
Team from the West Coast over here into the snow, and we should have a great game.
In Pennsylvania, the governor announcing a proclamation of disaster emergency to help bring in resources as parts of the state are buried after days of snow, more than 2 feet falling in Erie County. State police responding to nearly 200 incidents between Friday and Saturday.
And this is measured, unfortunately, in feet and not inches during this event. So I would just echo that. Stay home, stay home, stay home.
This dangerous weather comes as millions of families make their way back home from Thanksgiving. At airports across the country Saturday, the TSA screened nearly 3 million travelers, and today's total could be even higher, potentially the agency's busiest day ever.
Luckily, we got here as an overnight flight, and we were able to get right in early in the morning, but I see the line behind me, and it looks really long. So glad we did that overnight flight to get here soon.
And Lindsay, I am sure you can tell we're in the midst of one of these lake effect snow bans right now. And we know here in Watertown, some businesses had to abruptly close in the middle of the day because some of their employees just couldn't make it to work on these roads. And this snow is likely to keep coming down in heaps through this evening, Lindsay.
A state of emergency for parts of New York. We can see why. Trevor, thank you. Let's bring in ABC News meteorologist Somara Theodore. Somara, as we saw in Trevor's report there, this is the first blast of winter for millions. How long can we expect it to last?
Well, Lindsay, we're anticipating multiple rounds of snow through at least Friday. Take a look at the satellite and radar. Snow still battering many cities along the Great Lakes. Now, in the coming days, by Tuesday afternoon, we're still anticipating this lake effect snow machine to keep on cranking this snow out. Notice what happens next, though. This Clipper system dives deep into the northeast. By Wednesday night into Thursday morning, we could be looking at snow in places like Pennsylvania, upstate New York, with the rain-snow mix mainly along the I-95 corridor and east of that. We couldn't have this snow without the bitter cold. Check out these temperatures. We're anticipating temperatures to drop to the single digits early Wednesday morning in Minneapolis. Chicago, 14 degrees by Wednesday morning. And then Tuesday morning in New York City will be in the upper 20s. Lindsay.
Downright frigid. Samara, thank you. Now to the Trump transition, and the president-elect is making good on his promise to shake up the FBI, tapping his controversial longtime loyalist Kash Patel to lead the agency. He's been a harsh critic of the FBI and has promised to dismantle its headquarters. Patel is expected to face a tough Senate confirmation. Here's ABC's Jay O'Brien from Mar-a-Lago.
Tonight, President-elect Donald Trump pressing for a tectonic shakeup at the nation's top law enforcement agency and teeing up a bruising confirmation battle on Capitol Hill, announcing he plans to nominate controversial loyalist Kash Patel as the next director of the FBI. Patel has openly suggested using the federal government to target Trump's political opponents, telling Steve Bannon this last year.
We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice.
A longtime Trump ally, Patel, rising to prominence as a congressional aide, pushing back against the Russia investigation during Trump's first term. Then working in senior counterterrorism and intelligence roles before briefly serving as chief of staff to Trump's acting Secretary of Defense in 2020. But Patel's nomination still needs to be approved by the Senate, now expected to grill Trump's pick, who has promoted conspiracy theories of a so-called deep state and said he has day one plans for the FBI.
I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops.
Trump campaigned on clearing house at the FBI and the Department of Justice. To elevate Patel, the president-elect, saying he plans to fire current FBI Director Christopher Wray, who still has nearly 3 years left on his 10-year term. It was Trump himself who picked Wray in 2017. And tonight, in a statement, an FBI spokesperson saying the agency continues to work to protect Americans from a growing array of threats. Adding Director Wray's focus remains on the men and women of the FBI, the people we do the work with, and the people we do the work for.
And Lindsay, tonight, Senator Chuck Grassley, the incoming chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which would handle Patel's confirmation, signaling that he could get behind this polarizing pick if Patel can show he can reform the FBI and restore trust in the organization. Meantime, Grassley expected to meet tomorrow with Pam Bondi, Trump's new choice for Attorney General, who, of course, is taking over for another controversial nominee, former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz. Lindsay.
Jay, thank you. The family of an American Israeli hostage who's been held by Hamas for more than a year is renewing their push for his release. This weekend, Hamas was out with a video of 20-year-old Idan Alexander. His father joined a protest here in Central Park calling for freedom for all of the hostages. And in Gaza, Israel's intensifying its strikes. Here's ABC's Inez de la Quatara.
My name is Idan Alexander.
Tonight, new calls for a hostage release, with Hamas posting a new propaganda video of American-Israeli hostage Idan Alexander in Gaza, held captive for more than 400 days.
I am an American Israeli citizen, currently being held captive in the Gaza Strip.
Speaking under duress in the heavily edited footage, Alexander can be seen calling on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President-elect Trump to negotiate a hostage deal. This afternoon, his father speaking at a rally in New York, seconding his son's plea.
I stand here after seeing my son alive for the first time in over a year. President Biden, President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu, I call on all of you to act
With 4 Americans still being held in Gaza, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the White House has been working on a hostage and ceasefire deal and that there was activity even today.
We are determined to try to move rapidly to get those hostages home, get a ceasefire in place.
In Gaza, some combing through rubble after fresh Israeli strikes killed at least 47 people, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. The World Central Kitchen announcing it is suspending its operations in Gaza after an Israeli strike on one of its unmarked vehicles killed 5 people. The IDF says it was targeting someone who was involved in the October 7th massacre. The World Central Kitchen says it has no knowledge any of the passengers had ties to the attacks.
And Lindsay, amid the growing food shortage in Gaza, strong condemnation tonight from Netanyahu's former defense chief and former head of the IDF, telling Israeli media that Israel is on a path of ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Lindsay?
Inez, thank you. The Syrian military is rushing in reinforcements as rebels expand their deadly offensive. The white helmets of the Syrian civil defense say government airstrikes in the city of Idlib hit several residential buildings, trapping civilians under the rubble. The U.S. says it's monitoring the situation closely. The surprise offensive is an embarrassment for Syria's president, who's backed by Iran and Russia. His forces have been fighting insurgents for more than a decade. We have new details about the woman accused of boarding a Delta flight from JFK to Paris without a plane ticket. French authorities say she's a Russian national with an American green card. For now, she remains in France. The TSA and the airline are both trying to figure out how she went undetected until just before the plane landed. ABC's Rena Roy joins us now. And Rena, what are you learning?
Yeah, well, Lindsay, I can tell you that we are learning that woman was supposed to come back to the U.S. this weekend, but never made it here. We're told that she was unruly on the flight back from France, so they removed her. The French Interior Ministry telling us she's a Russian national who lives in the U.S. She illegally boarded a Delta Airlines flight from New York to Paris without a ticket last week, according to the TSA. Federal officials saying she somehow bypassed the document check podium and a gate agent at JFK Airport. They say, though, that she was fully screened at a security checkpoint. She was then removed from the plane after it landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport. French officials saying she was not allowed into the country because she did not have a visa. The FBI saying that they are aware of the incident. It is unclear what charges she might face. Lindsay?
All right, Rena, thank you. 6 people remain in the hospital tonight, 3 in critical condition after a large explosion leveled a home in Jefferson City, Missouri. Officials say the cause is under investigation. They say the rescue operations were particularly challenging due to the force of the blast. ABC's Morgan Norwood has the latest.
Tonight, crews in Missouri miraculously rescuing 6 people trapped beneath this mangled home after a massive explosion in Jefferson City. The blast happening over Thanksgiving weekend just before 3 a.m. Saturday.
It's just about 2:30 in the morning. We just heard a loud bang. It sounded like a bomb went off.
Dozens of first responders rushing to the scene. The devastation widespread. The damage so extensive, fire officials say it took more than 3 hours to tunnel through layers of debris and reach all the victims. 4 rushed to the hospital. 2 airlifted. 3 remain in critical condition.
This is certainly something out of unusual for us, especially to have this many victims involved. So this is a pretty significant event for this community.
This blast just the latest after a string across Michigan, Tennessee, and Ohio, where police say 2 people were killed and a 3rd person injured outside Cincinnati.
And Lindsay, fire officials say 2 pets were also rescued from that home tonight. Authorities working to determine what caused that home explosion in the first place. Lindsay?
Miraculous that some survived. Morgan, thank you. Just before we came on the air, the Big Ten College Football Conference announced that it would fine both the University of Michigan and Ohio State $100,000 each. It follows the massive brawl after this week's game. Some officers used pepper spray on players to break things up. It was just one of several scuffles that took place after games this weekend. Here's ABC's Ike Ajachi.
Tonight, college football's most revered rivals riled up and paying up. The Big Ten fining both Ohio State and Michigan $100,000 after a post-game brawl sent one officer to the hospital, a coach bloodied, and several players pepper sprayed. Players storming the field after the Wolverines' surprise 13-10 upset win over the number 2 Buckeyes. A Michigan player attempts to plant the team's flag into the Buckeyes logo. A player for Ohio State ripping it away. Several players knocked to the ground, pushing and shoving, escalating to punches and pepper spray. Ohio State police saying multiple officers representing Ohio and Michigan deployed pepper spray.
This is our field. We're embarrassed with the fact that we lost the game, but there's some prideful guys on his team that weren't just going to let that happen.
Michigan head coach Sharon Moore saying his players need to handle the rivalry better.
I did see they had the flag and guys were waving around and their guys charged us, so it was emotional on both sides. It can't happen.
It was a full day of college football conflict across the country, from a small skirmish in Arizona to UNC and NC State players brawling after another attempted flag planting, and FSU players and their head coach outraged after their University of Florida opponents planted their flag too. Lindsay, feeling some of that anger and frustration on Saturday night, a lot of teams are still vying for a spot in the college football playoffs right on ESPN. Lindsay?
Certainly very contentious. Ike, thank you. There's still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Sunday. Online sales went through the roof on Black Friday, and 2 important recalls to tell you about involving cucumbers and organic eggs. Next tonight, the holiday shopping season is off to an eye-opening start. Adobe says Black Friday online sales totaled nearly $11 billion. That's up more than 10% from a year ago. Strong sales of toys, jewelry, and appliances helped drive that growth. And Adobe predicts online sales on Cyber Monday will be even bigger than Friday's. Tonight, we have 2 important recalls to tell you about. Sun-Fed Produce is recalling whole, fresh American cucumbers because of possible salmonella contamination. At least 68 people have become sick. 18 have been hospitalized. The cucumbers were grown in Mexico and sold in at least 26 states between October 12th and November 26th. And more than 10,000 cartons of organic eggs sold at Costco are being recalled, also because of potential salmonella contamination. The eggs were sold under the Kirkland Signature brand in 5 states in the South. There are no reported illnesses linked to the eggs. When we come back, the movie that beat expectations, earning twice what was predicted at the box office. To the index now, and a record-setting debut for Moana 2. The animated adventure took in a whopping $221 million domestically, more than double the projected haul. It's the most ever for a Thanksgiving weekend. Moana 2 was produced by Disney, the parent company of ABC News. Next, the basketball world is mourning Lou Carnesecca. The Hall of Fame college coach died Saturday. Carnesecca won more than 500 games at St. John's. His teams made postseason tournaments in every one of his 24 seasons. He was a 5'6" bundle of energy, often wearing an ugly sweater. Lou Carnesecca was 99 years old. When we come back, the long journey now complete, and the People's Tree is ready to shine. Finally tonight, a special delivery just in time for the holidays. Tonight in our nation's capital, one journey has made the final destination a bit more special. This 80-foot Sitka spruce made the trek all the way from Alaska, 700 miles by sea, 4,000 miles on land. Now planting roots here on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol. Known as the People's Tree, it took a village to spread this holiday cheer. It all started in the Tongass National Forest on Zarembo Island, where the U.S. Forest Service searched for the perfect tree.
Really evaluate the characteristics of individual trees and determine if they're going to be suitable candidates.
Fred Austin from North Pole, Alaska, has worked for Linden Transport since 1975.
Just common, ordinary, make a dollar freight. It's just special freight for the whole country.
And John Shank.
Maybe John Shank. I'm from Fairbanks, Alaska.
Delivering his cargo safely.
You just got to be on your A game, be a defense driver, because you can avoid things that way.
11 stops on their journey, greeted in Fort Wayne, Indiana, Altoona, Iowa, Dover Air Force Base, and Joint Base Andrews, just to name a few, picking up personal signatures and messages all along the way.
Yay!
Then the delivery, just in time for the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree lighting ceremony this Tuesday.
Like they say, that Capitol Christmas tree, it's the people's tree.
Just 2 days till it gets lit. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Lindsay Davis. David Muir right back here tomorrow. Until then, good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir America's most watched newscast.